The truth is that if you're not properly oriented about what undergraduate project is, you won't know what to do. You won't even have an idea of what your expectations are, the due process, and actually your academic responsibility. Well, today I'm going to take you through what you should be doing to have a seamless and a successful undergraduate project experience. All right, in this session, we'll clarify what a BSc project means, what it requires. We're going to define the intellectual ownership as it attached to it, not just earning points that will make you graduate. You learning through the process and being made through the process. I'm going to explain and talk through supervision boundaries. I'm going to talk through certain academic and ethical expectations. And what exactly is a BSc project? A BSc project is a test of your knowledge over the past um, 3 to 4 years, and it's actually a way of testing your project management skills. So it goes beyond just passing an exam or ticking off boxes. A structured academic investigation where you have a statement of a problem introducing us to the problem, and then you have a literature review looking at what other people have done, telling us your own method to solving a problem that you have identified, and gathering the data, and of course analyzing it, and then making a reasonable conclusion based on the data you've gathered. That is what it means. It is a structured thing. Now, one would say a structured academic investigation. What does this entail? It entails evidence of research competence. You've been taught certain things over the past 3 to 4 years, and now you are sort of given an opportunity to pick an area which interests you that you need to research on. If at this point you don't know, it's not entirely bad, but it's questionable if you've been translating all that you've learned into knowledge since the past 3 years or 4 years. Now, you need at this point to have gotten to the point of maturity where you know what your interest is and what it is not, which area and what it is not. So you can then narrow down into that area and say, I want to investigate this. And in the course of your investigation, investigative process is the process of gathering evidence. So a project, a BSc project, is gathering evidence of research competence and then applying theories to real world issues. It's an opportunity for you to translate those theoretical knowledge into a practical issues. Okay, let's say for instance, you've been taught about news writing and reporting. People have done the part of it of reporting the news. You must have done some production courses, but now you have been asked to do a project. Someone could pick an interesting topic such as analyzing news content, focusing on certain subjects. I don't know if this makes sense to you. Now you want to evaluate and to look at how stories are being written and how it might be shaping narrative. For example, a theory that will be relevant for that is framing theory. Another theory that will be relevant to that is agenda setting theory. So I mentioned something about theories and how it relates to what you're sort of investigating. Theories are explainers, they are constructs, they are ideas that can be tested, either validated or invalidated, or in fact built upon. So you are trying to look at if the theory says that the media has the capacity, has the ability to set agenda through framing of a story, meaning that I've brought two theories together. You can then look at news coverage of certain events and see if you can find elements of that, of media consistently setting agenda or framing stories in certain ways. That's a good idea. So another thing is it shows your demonstration of independent thinking. Your demonstration of independent thinking. If you're outside of mass communication, media studies, and more, and let's imagine that you're in sociology, psychology, and you want to investigate maybe through questionnaire, survey research to test one of those psychological theories. You can do some questionnaires based on some standard rules that is built on the ideas in the theory. After having gotten response, you can then test those response against those standards. That will give you an idea of what perception or what psychological practice is dominant among those who you have investigated or questioned in your using your questionnaire, which is your instrument. So a project is meant to test your ability to think independently. Don't miss that. If you're missing that point, you're missing a major point. Next, I want to talk to you about what a project is not. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is what a project is not. It is not a mere graduation requirement, one of those boxes that you tick, like I've earlier mentioned. Second, it is not a supervisor designed document. And I'm saying this because of my initial audience of recording this particular presentation. I've met a couple of students who do say, well, their supervisor gave them this topic. That shouldn't be. It should be something that is self-driven. If you know what you're doing, you won't be in that shoe. If you have a clear idea of the direction you're going, you won't be the one that will be. You won't be among those that will be given that will be handed down a topic or a course. If you have a clear path of where you're going to, you won't be handed over an address. When you have an address, a topic, then your project supervisor is meant to supervise you to help you get to the destination of your address, meaning it will help you, walk you through, and ensure that you follow the standard practice. That is what they call supervision. Supervision is not doing the work, it is watching you and guiding the doer to achieve what they want to achieve. So a supervisor doesn't design the building, a supervisor ensures that the plan of the building is executed. I hope you are saying it. A supervisor, a supervision, someone who is above and who is able to see your vision and ensure that you follow through the vision to achieve the vision. Again, a research, a project is not a public opinion, is not an opinion essay. It is based on evidence, based on facts. So don't forget that. Now, let's talk about the research process flow. There's what called workflow, how it should be done. When you want to make a reasonable research, you want to embark on a reasonable research, you have to be interested in a particular thing for you to narrow down. For example, perhaps I'm interested in child abuse related matters, I'm interested in politics, then that's my area. If I'm a communicator and I've studied mass communication, I'm interested in politics, and I should be interested in political communication. If I'm a person who is interested in health and I study communication, I should be interested in health communication. If I'm someone who has interest in psychology, I can be interested in psychology of mass communication. So depends on your interest, you can blend this. See, communication is a field that is open and diverse. It is boundaryless. Yes, permit me to say that. So where do you start from? You start from identify a real and researchable problem. When you have been able to identify a real, it must be real and be researchable. Then the next thing you want to do is to review the Nigerian and international literatures. Review the research that has been done locally, regionally, nationally. You understand what I mean? And then think about if there are similar things that have been done internationally, so as to sort of make your research more grounded and even logical and presentable, such that you can even pass on such ideas to be presentable at international conferences. Now, once this has been done, you've seen what other people have done. Then with that idea, your knowledge of you reading, you ask yourself what is missing. That leads us to the point of asking ourselves the question of identifying the gaps, the research gap. This is one of the most crucial things. And you cannot identify a gap if you have not reviewed literature. You need to review literature for you to know the gap. Now, that you identify the gap, let's say, for instance, I'm looking at political communication, then there's been an election, perhaps the way INEC has been communicating has not been sufficient enough from the review of literature in the past, and then I look at the recent election and I see that there are likely to be similar pattern, then I can say there might be a gap in INEC communications. And then what happens? I develop an objective around that, develop objectives around that. And with my objectives, I'm able to craft out questions. When I'm able to craft that, because your objective have to drive your questions. When your objective drives your question, you are then able to justify using a certain methodology, meaning that you can then decide what method is suitable for this research, because the objective and the questions will determine the kind of method, and the kind of method must be justifiable by the scope of the research. Now, once you've done this and you've been able to get to this point, that is from this point to this point, you are then good. You have laid a solid foundation, which we can call a proposal. A proposal. Sorry, I didn't connect my pen, so it's not the best at the moment. So after that, you can then go to the point of collecting and analyzing and interpreting data based on the method that you have set. And once you have done that, you're good. So this is the precise flow. We have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5. The most important steps are this, and this one is key. Okay, we'll move on. Now, examples relevant to Nigerian undergraduate research. Now, impact of social media and political participation among Nigerian youths. Look at that. Impact of social media on political participation among Nigerians. That's a good research topic. How do you measure it? It's look at the effect, let's say for instance, effect of campus radio on student information awareness, or influence of digital journalism on news credibility in Nigeria. Has digital journalism caused more harm than good, or has it affected the quality of news? You can as well look at media framing of insecurity issues in Nigerian newspapers. These are good examples and relevant Nigerian research-based topic. I'll move on. These are some common student mistakes observed in supervisions. You see, students who are confused about their topic. Choosing a broad topic without narrowing focus leads to serious problem. So confusing topic with research problem is a common thing. Your topic is just like a scope into an area. Your problem is picking out the particular spot where there's a problem. And you can't copy objective from past projects, because if you're looking at a unique problem, then you should have unique goals, that is objective, that will address the problems you've identified. And then you can select a bespoke or design a methodology that will answer it. Another thing here is that people just select methodology without justification. You have to be able to justify why you have chosen that particular method? And is it sufficient to answer your question? The next common mistake they make is inability to explain their study without reading. You should be able to explain what you're studying without looking at your paper, because that is what you want to research. If you don't know it, who else should? And some research just lack, or they have a weak or absent theoretical framework. Theoretical framework is like the skeleton that holds your work together. Your data holds no meaning or have no meaning without your framework. Framework is like the skeleton that oh God, that is making us stand as human. The same, your theoretical framework, conceptual framework, and empirical review are the skeleton that holds your project, your research together. Now, I have a practice. You should be able to defend your topic. If that is what you want to do, you should be able to defend your topic. So what specific problem does your research or your study address? What specific problem? These are questions I will ask. Who is affected in the Nigerian context? Because we have to bring it to context. It has to be relevant. By proximity, it has to be relevant within a time frame. It has to be relevant to your course of study. It has to make sense. 3, what gap exists in existing literature? You must be able to connect it to a gap that exists. And what are the key variables or concepts in the area of study? The next question you must answer in order to defend your topic is, why is your chosen method appropriate? You see, we keep coming back to this same 3-step approach, having an idea, looking at what other people have done, and designing a method that addresses what you want to do. Now, what is your responsibility? You have to do that extra work to ensure that you understand and you are in a position to defend your work. You will be in a position to conduct independent literature search, either using Google Scholar search engine, Open Google search engine, semantic scholars, or connected papers, depending on whatever. There's several options out there. Some use AI to search, but I will advise you, and strongly advise you, to always cross-check, because AI can be GAI. It can generate things that doesn't exist. So now, it is also your responsibility to submit your work before meetings and give adequate time for your supervisor to review, and ensure you get a feedback that he has actually read before the meeting. Don't always think they have time on their side at any time. So revise the feedbacks that you've been given. If you've got a previous meeting, ensure that you are up to date, that you've done what you need to do, and then keep yourself in the loop so you don't make mistakes of not addressing what has been discussed in the previous meeting. This can make you appear unserious to your supervisor. And the next point, which is very important in this age and time, is for you to maintain an academic integrity. Avoid the irresponsible use of AI. I recently reviewed a project, and then I found out that 98% of the work was generated with AI. How could such student graduate and be able to defend that they can manage a project? And there was no clear-cut report that this was written by AI. Mind you, there are tools out there that can help us identify this. And personally, merely reading an AI-generated work, I know it. Okay, we'll move on. I'm almost moving to the end of this presentation. Is supervisors' responsibility. Supervisors provide academic guidance. They critique and they monitor your work, your progress, to ensure that you're making good progress. They ensure that methodological soundness is there, that your work is methodological sound. It can't be faulted easily. And it is not designed or written just for students. It has to be able, it must be written in such a way that it is useful even outside the university environment. Now, let's talk more about academic integrity because it's important. You have to ensure there is no plagiarism. This is an overarching thing, it's a common thing, it's a criminal offense in academia. No outsourcing of your project because the certification is in your name. No fabrication of data. You have to be responsible in your use of AI. This is coming up again. You must be transparent and you must log every attempt or every interactions or how you have used AI. You should also ensure that there is proper citation as required. Violation of any of these can lead to project rejection, and this will be you starting all over again, and this can actually make you have an extra year, or in fact it can be very disorganizing if you have invested your time using AI and you are not asked to do it afresh. It will be much more difficult. It's better to start clueless and learn how to do it right rather than doing the wrong thing and learning later, because you're going to pay much more later and it's going to be costly. You don't want to put yourself in that shoe. And lastly is a final reminder that your project is your intellectual responsibility. So your clarity is very important. It precedes writing. You have to have a clarity of mind, clarity of idea of what you want to do. That's why it's good to have a conversation with your supervisor. Don't just go and bring up a topic and then start writing and then just present out of the blue. Try as much as possible to do what is right. Okay, the other point is own your work. Ownership determines success. When you own your work, you do your work right, you'll be fine and you'll be successful at it. And then understanding that the minimum expectation is set and reading the requirement so that you don't miss the point. I have standard expectation. I work within the structured framework. And anyone that needs to be supervised by me have to follow that. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem because you need to be transparent. So, in a nutshell, I've been able to make you understand the process you need to follow, the workflow you need to follow in order for you to have a successful supervision. If you do this right for undergraduates, it will be difficult for masters, and it will become even easier handling a doctorate thesis, a doctoral thesis, a PhD. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned something. And if you have not written something so far, you might have to watch this video again. Actually, you might have to watch this video again. So you take notes, it sinks in. You need to watch this video at least 2 to 3 times for it to sink in. And if you still find it useful, do well to like, share, and subscribe, because that's the only way you can see more of this kind of content. And if you've got any questions, any worries, any concern, or you're having challenges, you're wondering how to handle it, put the questions in the chat and I'll respond to you. So wishing you a very good adventure doing your research, doing the projects, and this might be your first successful project if you do it right. See you in my next video. Cheers.